Yeah, I start off the press conference, give a lot of credit to Hofstra. I thought they battled. They're an excellent defensive team. They've got two outstanding guards. Really, really hard to defend them. Gets you court spread out. But having said that, for all the struggles we had throughout the game offensively, and I give a lot of credit to Hofstra, we in the last 2 or 3 minutes had opportunities to take the lead, and had a corner three that goes in and out. Playing a lot of young players and a lot of freshmen out there, and it's good to see. I think I'd be a hypocrite if I told our guys that I didn't like our fight against Wilmington. I loved our fight tonight. We just weren't very good offensively, and Hofstra has a lot to do with that. So we've got to lick our wounds, and we've got a quick turnaround against Campbell, and it'll be life on the road for 4 of the last 5. So that's the way the schedule plays out, and we're in good position, not the position we wanted to be in, but it is what it is, and now we just have to move forward and be ready to play Campbell.
Did you detect any bit of a hangover in Monday night?
No, not really. I thought, our start, which we've been frustrated with. I thought I think we came to the first TV timeout. And we won that, what we call war, and we lost the next 4. Hofstra had a lot to do with that. But no, I don't think we had a hangover. I think we really struggled to score against the way they flood to the ball and their size inside. Our 3-point percentage hasn't been great all year, but our 2-point percentage wasn't very good tonight. And that's we left some stuff on the rim. We've got to be able to finish through contact, or we have to take better shots, spray it out, knowing that Hofstra floods the paint. But no, I don't think there was any type of hangover.
Any thought on the Hickman? I mean, were you preparing for this game thinking Hickman was going to play its use game yesterday, or were you pretty well aware that it was coming down?
No, I wasn't really aware. I mean, the judge had it in his hands for a long time since we had the actual Zoom hearing, and so we knew a decision was coming, but we weren't sure when. I think Connor's been a part of our team on the floor in games and practices up until last night. So yes, we were preparing to to play with Connor, but that didn't happen.
Moving forward, how does that kind of change what you're going to do out there?
Well, obviously there's going to be minutes ahead. I thought, Chris Davis did a great job, Chad Traylor. I mean, again, we're playing a lot of young guys. I'd like to go back, though, and I haven't publicly talked about any of this stuff. And I think it's complete horseshit. Excuse my language. They talked about Connor Hickman, and I'm talking about the NCAA, playing more than the threshold to get a medical red shirt. They kept on using that. Well, he's over the number of games you're allowed to play. We have a player in our league, and I'm glad for the kid. He deserves to play too. That was over the threshold too, but yet he gets a medical red shirt, and Connor doesn't. Connor isn't a 6th year, an 8th year football player, NBA player, G League player. He's a kid who got hurt after his 9th game of his senior year. He was diagnosed with a broken foot at the time. NCAA kept asking in their waiver process, we need contemporaneous information, which that means we need documentation from that time period when it happened. We gave them doctor's notes that said Connor Hickman's foot was broken. Medical team advised him to rest on that and then played him and practiced him a day later. What they did to Connor is completely wrong. This isn't a situation where, we were asking for an absurd 8th year, 7th year. Just wants to have a really good senior year. And for the NCAA to not allow him to play, they have a waiver process, and then they have an appeal process. And I know the appeal process wasn't followed the way it was supposed to. They have a 5-person committee. I know all 5 people didn't hear the case. This is a tight-knit community, the NCAA members. They were turning over the committee. They were going to have an entirely new committee, so they tried to rush all these cases that they have piled up. And so when the committee's supposed to meet and discuss and vote on whether to give Connor a year of eligibility as an appeals committee, it's truly unfair when that decision's made by one person. They just said, hey, you do these 20, you do these 20, you do these 20, because we have a lot on our plate and we're changing over the committee. I know that. It's wrong. Again, there's a player in our league, and I'm happy for him. He should be playing. Got hurt after 11 games, and he gets a medical red shirt. So I feel for Connor. Our team will be fine. I mean, you saw it out on the floor. We didn't win tonight, but I was really happy with our process. I was happy with how we battled. Things weren't going well for us. We just kept defending. We hold one of the best backcourts in our league to 1 for 13 from 3. We just couldn't make a bucket down the stretch. So I feel we'll be fine. I just really feel for Connor Hickman and the absolute mess that he's had to go through really since we got him here.
Is there any recourse for you? I mean, at this point, or you just can't worry about it because you've got 5 games remaining and then a tournament in DC, like you can't worry about it? Or is there recourse that you could really continue to push this issue with you?
It's not necessarily, recourse with me. I mean, Connor's got some decisions to make, and I'll just leave it at that. I mean, obviously he can, litigate some stuff, but that'll be his decision. I have to focus, and Connor's going to continue to be a part of our program, as I said in the statement. He's taking it like a champ. Like I thought he would be just absolutely crushed, and he's crushed. But he's not. He showed up tonight, sat on the bench, cheering on his teammates, making points at halftime. I know a lot of guys, probably including me when I was 21 years old, probably wouldn't have showed up and stayed in my dorm room and felt sorry for myself. So for him to do that, again, says a lot about his character. To me, those are the types of guys that you want to keep in college basketball, not the guys that have, signed professional contracts and guys that have been in their 8th and 9th year, and it's ridiculous. You get 5 years to play for when you get hurt. He gets hurt before the threshold, and then he plays a couple of games because he was advised to, and that's where we stand. So, and it's something that we've been dealing with literally since May. Yeah, I just feel bad for him.
How do you see the team rally around Connor when that decision came down? Because I'm sure they hit it.
I think that, they feel for him too. Guys are resilient, and I think you combine that with how we played against Wilmington, and they had a lot to do with it. But I think our guys, they fought tonight. Everybody wants to win, and, nobody more than me. But when you give that type of effort and you just come up short because you can't put the ball in the basket, we get that type of effort from here on out. I think we'll be fine.
That's somebody, the 2 freshmen, Chris and Chapman. Yeah, they really gave us.
They were awesome. We got a lot of first-year players in college basketball. Chol, who's tremendously up and down. You've got Martin, who's trying to get used to a new country, a new culture, and he's had a very up and down year. But Chris and Chad had great games tonight. We don't make the run, and we don't have a shot in the corner to take the lead with a minute and a half to go. If it weren't for some of the play they made, I thought Chad's defense on arguably the best guard in the league, or at least one of the top 2 or 3, was insane for a freshman. I mean, he's got a lot of wiggle to his game. And for him to hit that right-handed 12-foot in the air, soft shot off the glass to put him up 4, I mean, it's a big-time shot. Couldn't ask for better defense out of Chad. I mean, pushed him to his weak hand and made a really tough shot.
How good is it to have that senior kind of presence and Jalen counter quarterback in your offense?
Yeah, it wasn't his night tonight, but, he's had so many nights where it's hard to fault him. he's got to get a little bit better with, being tighter with the ball. I thought he rebounded. I thought he defended. He just turned it over one too many times. And, he, along with a lot of other guys going to the rim, it's difficult. Hofstra presents a lot of size and athleticism at the basket. And, we should have been a little bit more diligent in our approach to the basket. I think Colby had a jump stop and he found Chris in the lane. We need to do a little bit more of that and have some better interior passing than shooting some of the shots that we did. But, hopefully we learn from that.
Concerted effort maybe to go to the hole, get downhill a little bit more instead of settling for the threes in the second half with that address.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying, Chad helped with that. Get Chad and Jalen a couple ball handlers, and, Chris is so dang on explosive. He's got to make a good decision at the end of his drives. But they're coming. And, we were trying to establish Christian. He just, Silas Sunday's a strong kid, got a lot of size, pushed him out. And so, I know that's the prescription for our team is to get the ball in the paint through drives, through post-ups, through set plays and cuts. We got to do a better job against physical, aggressive teams like Hofstra. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.